पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते. So welcome to our Saturday morning session. And now we are passing through what we call the holy period of the year, which starts with Navratra and then actually starts with Sraddh, followed by Navratra. Sraddh is also a sort of, tribute to our ancestors. We remember them, we pay respect to them, and we learn from their, knowledge, their wisdom. And then we start 9 days of Navratra. That is the time to, purify yourself from inside as well as outside. So we restrain in eating, we restrain in, misusing our various senses, and we limit the misuse of our senses, and then we follow a life of more discipline. And then this is followed by Vijayadashmi, that is the day when, which is also symbolizing the victory of good over evil, and the Ravan Dahan, which is symbolizing this kind of, that good always prevails. So I think with that, we move towards Diwali, which will be the celebration of return of Lord Rama back to Ayodhya after he accomplished his mission in Lanka and in different forests where he was able to, destroy a lot of evil forces at that time. So this is a good time to meditate, to think over, and also today is a very special day. I'll explain to you a little later why. But we are reaching a very, landmark in our uh, sessions, which started more than 2 years ago. But we are reaching a big landmark today, which I'll explain later on. So let us start with the verse number 37. Now, verse number 37 and 38, these are again the questions by Arjun. In fact, 339 as well. And these are the questions which we all ask ourselves. We also have the same doubt. As the previous doubt in previous uh, question, Arjun asked a doubt which was a doubt of entire humanity. Similarly, in that question, he asked that the mind is very chanchal, it's very, volatile. How to control that? It's not very easy. And Lord Krishna answered that question and using the two very profound words, that is Abhyas and Vairagya. And now the next question is also a question which all of us wonder at times. So let's hear this question and then we'll talk about various facets of that question. अर्जुन बोले, हे श्री कृष्ण, जो योग में श्रद्धा रखने वाला है किंतु संयमी नहीं है, इस कारण जिसका मन अंत्यकाल में वियोग से विचलित हो गया है, ऐसा साधक योग की सिद्धि को अर्थात भगवत साक्षात्कार को न प्राप्त होकर किस गति को प्राप्त होता है। योग में जिसकी श्रद्धा है लेकिन संयम नहीं है, I think this is applicable to all of us. We all believe that we should become yogi, but we are not able to observe the path of self-discipline which is required and which Lord Krishna mentioned in this chapter in great detail. So now he's saying that if the person is like this, which is applicable to each one of us, then what happens to him? And he is not able to attain, or he is not able to unite with the Almighty. Then what happens to him? Where does he go? So this is the question he's asking. Then he's saying further down that, हे महाबाहो, क्या वह भगवत प्राप्ति के मार्ग में मोहित और आश्रय रहित पुरुष छिन्न भिन्न बादल की भांति दोनों ओर से भ्रष्ट होकर नष्ट तो नहीं हो जाता. नाउ दोनों ओर से भ्रष्ट होकर, व्हाट डज इट मीन? इट मीन्स दैट in order to attain yoga, we have to detach ourselves from the worldly comforts, from the pleasures of the world. Our sense organs have to be taken away from the physical comforts which we obtain by consuming different things in the world. So, in that path, you are not able to enjoy the worldly comforts and worldly pleasures. And then, if you are not able to attain the Almighty, you are not able to become one with the Almighty, then obviously you cannot attain the pleasure or the bliss of yoga as well. So, in that state, what happens to that person? And I think this is a question which each one of us wants to know, because why should we do preparation for yoga if it is not going to help us? Because we are deprived of the worldly comforts. At the same time, we are not able to attain our mission, to attain the Almighty and to unite with Him. So, what is the purpose? Why should we do it? So, he's saying that this kind of person, does he get completely torn up like the clouds which are torn by the wind, and they keep running here and there? So what happens to him? So this is the question which is, I think, a very profound question, but at the same time is the question of each one of us. Each one of us has this question. Then he says, हे श्री कृष्ण, मेरे इस संशय को संपूर्ण रूप से छेदन करने के लिए आप ही योग्य हैं, क्योंकि आपके सिवा इस संशय का छेदन करने वाला मिलना संभव नहीं है. Now this is what he said. So the question is basically that a person who is having a lot of faith in yoga, but he is not able to observe self-discipline, cannot follow that path properly, as explained by Lord Krishna in this chapter and in the previous chapters. Then what happens to that person? Does he, is he deprived of all the comforts of the world, and then he's also deprived of the bliss of the unity with the Almighty? So what is the state of his existence? And this is what we have to understand, because if we are not able to take comfort and luxuries of this world, and we are not able to attain the bliss of the next world, then what is the point in following the path of yoga? That is the question we ask ourselves, and this is the question Krishna has been asked by Arjuna. Now, the answer is very interesting, because this answer gives us so many profound details on certain things. So we'll go slowly on each one of these verses. श्री भगवान बोले, हे पार्थ, उस पुरुष का न तो इस लोक में नाश होता है, न ही परलोक में नाश होता है, क्योंकि हे प्यारे, आत्मोद्धार के लिए अर्थात भगवत प्राप्ति के लिए जो कर्म करने वाला व्यक्ति है, वो दुर्गति को प्राप्त नहीं होता. Now this is a statement which gives us 2-3 things. One is islok and parlok. So this is the concept which is very clear, that there is another world after death. This is not the only world which is in existence. This is the world where we live, and after that we go to another world. Now what is that world? Whether it is Swarg or whether it is Narak or whether it is something else, that will come slowly in the later part of Bhagavad Gita. But he says that ye lok or parlok. So there are two, definitely, the after death we go to another world, where a justice is done to the actions we have done in this world. this is the what we can in Christianity they call it day of judgment, but it is not exactly that way. There's no judgment here. The judgment is your own karma. So based on your karma, you go to the next world, and then uh, you stay there, you enjoy those fruits, and then you come back. So this is also talking about rebirth at the same time. So the concept of lok and parlok and rebirth is all enshrined in this particular verse. Then he says that जो आदमी आत्मोद्धार के लिए करता काम कर रहा है, he is trying to do understand himself, to who am I, to know that a person is working on that, he can never go, or he can durgati ko matlab he can never be punished. He will always be a good going to a good path or good destination. So this is absolutely clear. Even if we do not succeed in our efforts in this life, you don't have to worry. That will be explained further down. We are not going to suffer because of that. We will definitely enjoy the results of the good karma which we are performing, and we will not be subject to any punishment at all. This is absolutely clear in this verse. So we should remove all the doubts that there are a lot of people who ask this question. In fact, I have been asked this question in many places, that we are depriving ourselves of the comforts in this world because we have to, regulate our sense organs. At the same time, we are not sure what will happen, afterwards. So this is the answer to that question, that afterwards you will get the results which will be good results of your karma which you are doing to understand yourself. आत्मोद्धार के लिए जो आप काम कर रहे हैं, वो व्यक्ति कभी भी दुर्गति को प्राप्त नहीं होता. Now it's I can't find exactly the English words for these two things, but basically the person who are working for understanding the self, for realizing the self, they can never be subject to any kind of punishment or any kind of difficulties. The next one is further explaining the same thing. Yog Bhrast Purus. Yog Bhrast is the one who is trying to attain yoga, but because he is not able to exercise full discipline, and therefore he has not been able to reach that stage. That is the word here he has been used. पुरुष पुण्य वालों के लोकों में, अर्थात स्वर्गादपि उत्तम लोकों को प्राप्त होकर उनमें बहुत वर्षों तक निवास करके और फिर शुद्ध आचरण वाले श्रीमान पुरुषों के घर में जन्म लेता है. Now this is a very clear cut answer, that when you are working to understand yourself, to realize yourself, even if you do not attain your objective in this life, those karmas will enable you to enjoy bliss in that parlok, in the swarg or whatever place you are going after death. And then it will also ensure your rebirth in a good family. Now, birth is the one which is extremely important. We do not have any control over our birth. We are just born, we are thrown into this world. Who will be our parents, we don't know. Who are our parents, we don't know. So that parentage is extremely important. The place you are born and the parents to whom you are born is extremely important. If you analyze your life, I think 70 to 80% of your life is decided with your birth. It's very clear when you are born, for example, in India or in UK, the language you will speak, the food you will eat, the clothing you will wear, the kind of traditions, customs you will follow, the kind of the company of the people you will get. All these things are decided or based on your birth, straight away on based on your birth. Also, whether you will be rich, whether you will be poor. Some people are born on to very poor parents who have to live their life on the streets. Some people are born in palaces. So the birth decides easily 70% of our destiny. The basic fundamentals are decided right on the birth. And if you are able to take birth in a good family, your this living in this world becomes very smooth, very comfortable. And then you can pursue your path of yoga easily. So this is what Lord Krishna is saying here, that even if you are not able to attain the final outcome of your yoga in this life, don't worry. You will enjoy the fruits of what you have done, and then you will be reborn in a place, in a family where you can easily pursue your path further. This is extremely important, and this also defines the concept of rebirth and why people are born in good families or poor families or rich families or families which are not considered so good. Then further down he says that अथवा वैराग्यवान पुरुष उन लोकों में न जाकर ज्ञानवान योगियों के कुल में ही जन्म लेता है, परंतु इस प्रकार का ये जो जन्म है वो संसार में अत्यंत दुर्लभ है. दुर्लभ तरम लोके जन्म यदीदृशम. This kind of birth, if you look at the world, if you look around ourselves, you will find that there are very few children are born in good families. 70-80% people, for example, in India, are born in extremely poor families. Some people are born in, slums. Some people are born in family which are engaged in cruel activities like theft and, killing and things like that. Some people are born in families which are middle class but not so well developed spiritually. So, getting a birth in a spiritually developed family is a great privilege. So, we all have that privilege. Maybe we did some good karma in our last birth, and that is why we were born in this, good families, and we are able to pursue that path further. So, this is what Lord Krishna is saying. He is further saying that ज्ञानवान योगियों के कुल में जन्म लेता है. He is born to a family where he will be able to understand the wisdom of the people. The wise people will be surrounding him. And because of that wisdom all around him, he will be able to progress easily. And this birth, he says, he is very clearly saying that this birth, durlabh taram loke, janm yadi drasham. This kind of birth is very durlabh, बहुत ही कम लोगों को मिलता है. And we know that. We see it all around us. So this is very, very important. So we don't have to worry. Let's follow this path. We will attain the, even if we don't succeed, don't worry. We will, get all the fruits of our efforts in the next birth, and we will be born in a good place where we will be able to pursue this path further. Then he says further down, वहां उस पहले शरीर में संग्रह किए हुए बुद्धि संयोग से अर्थात समबुद्धि रूप योग के संस्कारों को अनायासी प्राप्त हो जाता है. और हे कुरुनंदन, इस उसके प्रभाव से वह फिर परमात्मा की प्राप्ति रूप सिद्धि के लिए बढ़कर प्रयत्न करता है. नाउ संग्रह किए हुए. Now this also clarifies the concept of sanskar, that the action you are performing now, they get accumulated as a part of your life, and at the time of your death you take those further. This will be explained, I think, in chapter 13 and 14 very clearly, how the karma go with us, in what form. The karma which we perform, they are not visible, the results are not visible, but the invisible karmas are extremely important, because that balance goes with you to the next life. Now we all know, for example, take the example of Adi Shankaracharya. He was able to recite Vedas and various, Shastras at the age of 6 to 8. Now that is not possible physically to understand in, for any human being at that age. It became possible because he had the accumulated karmas of the last births, and as a result, he acquired that knowledge automatically in the next birth. That is what happens to this kind of people. Look at Swami Vivekananda. At the age of 33, he passed away. Before that, he was able to, uh, you know, give discourse on all kinds of shastras and all kinds of, writings we have. And he was able to enlighten the people around the world. That became possible because he inherited the accumulated wisdom of the past births. And as a result, in the new birth, from the very childhood, he had that inclination and he started working on it. Now, that is not only possible in this kind of format, but also like musicians. We know Bach and Beethoven in the West, in Germany and Austria. Now, those people were able to, you know, formulate a large number of musical notes at the age of 6, 7, 8, 9, very complex musical notes, because they inherited that skill from their last births. So, anybody who has that inheritance of the last birth, they continue with those skills in the current birth, and that skill helps them to reach a new height in the current birth. So I think this is extremely important to understand, that as we do, as the we know an organization has a balance sheet, they accumulate profit. The profits are shown in the balance sheet, and automatically they become part of the new year's, opening balance. And with that balance, they open their account and then they add new profits. The 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 balance of profits keep increasing, and when they close at the end of the next year, again they open with the higher balance in the next year. So exactly the same way, if we keep accumulating our balance in each life, automatically it will be added to the opening balance of our next life. So this is what Lord Krishna has very clearly explained here. There are two, three concepts here. In fact, three concepts very clearly. Firstly, that there is a concept of lok and parlok. Then there is a concept that all the actions you do in this, you carry that balance in the next birth. Thirdly, that balance automatically enables you to take birth in an appropriate family. If you have done good karma, you are born in a good family. If you have done bad karma, you are born in a not so good family. So the birth depends on that. And then you inherit that balance in the beginning of your life, and therefore it becomes easier for you to pursue this path. So this is extremely important. We should never give up the path of righteousness. We should never give up the path of self-realization. Even if we are not able to realize it now, the balance will be added to our karmas, and we will inherit in the next birth. So this is what he has very clearly said. So we need not to get disappointed. We need not have any doubt on that. This is a very, very clear answer to him. Then the next verse number 44, continuing again the same थिंक वह श्रीमानों के घर में जन्म लेने वाला योग भ्रष्ट पराधीन हुआ, उस पहले के अभ्यास से ही निसंदेह भगवान की ओर आकर्षित किया जाता है तथा समबुद्धि रूप योग का जिज्ञासु वेद में कहे हुए सकाम कर्मों के फल को उल्लंघन कर जाता है। नाउ obviously that person accumulates that you know knowledge, gyan, and that gyan helps him in the next life, and he is able to get attracted in that direction because of that knowledge. You will see some people from the very childhood, they have an inclination to understand who am I, what is this world, why I have been born here, who is the, is there any Almighty or is there any Paramatma, what is my relationship with Him. These questions you will find in certain people in very childhood. Some people are born with that curiosity that becomes possible only because that person must have followed this path very vigorously in the previous birth, and that is why he has that curiosity. He is naturally attracted to that field, like a musician is attracted to music, a dancer is attracted to the dance. Similarly, a spiritual person is attracted to the spirituality in his next birth straight away. It's a very straightforward answer and very interesting answer. So I think it's a very clear, simple answer. Whatever you do, it is never destroyed. That will become part of your life and it will go with you in the next life. And your birth will depend on that as well. Now, here there's another thing here which we have to understand. योग वेद में कहे हुए सकाम कर्मों के फल को उल्लंघन कर जाता है. You see, Ved, I'm not talking about Upanishad. Upanishad is part of Ved, but I'm not talking about that right now. Ved is basically the original part of the Ved is devoted more to Karma Kand. That you do like this, then you will get this result. You do like this, you will get this result. It is basically action reaction, which has been explained in the Karma Kand part of yoga. Now that is sakam, because you are doing a particular havan, for example, you do a havan, you will get this result out of it. If you do this tapasya, you will get that result out of it. So all that which has been explained in the Karma Kand part of Ved, you overcome that, you go beyond that. That is for the sakam people, people who are working for an outcome. Like most businessmen are sakam, most politicians are working for sakam, that they put in their effort keeping in view that this would be the outcome for them. A politicians put in effort thinking that this would be the outcome. I'll become minister, I'll become chief minister based on this. So he pursues his path based on the prospective outcome of it. So that is called sakam. Now, that sakam karma has been explained in the karma kand part of Ved. And he is saying that you transcend that part. You go beyond that. And you are automatically attracted to the Almighty. You are not subject to that sakam. So this is another explanation given here, that if you are following the path of yoga without expectations, without desire, then you will transcend that and you will be automatically attracted to the Almighty. So I think this is very, very, it looks simple, but simple things are most, profound in certain ways. So this is the most profound knowledge, that let us do our karma in the best possible way. Whatever comes doesn't matter, we accept, because if we are not getting the results in this birth, we will get that result in the next birth. Next birth automatically will be born in a better family, we will have attraction to spiritual thoughts in the from the very beginning, and we will continue on that path. So I think let's stick to that, and we should tell those people who want very quick results. We can explain this that life is not ending after the death here. The life is a continuous process, like everything has a cycle, life also has a cycle. And in that cycle, if we want to continue to grow up, then we should continue to do this kind of spiritual activities, and that will raise our level every time in the life, and that raised level will help us attaining closer to the godhood, and then finally we will become one with the Almighty. Now, next verse number 45. परंतु प्रयत्न पूर्वक अभ्यास करने वाला योगी पिछले अनेक जन्मों के पिछले अनेक जन्मों के संस्कार बल से इसी जन्म में संसित होकर संपूर्ण पापों से रहित होकर और फिर तत्काल परमात्मा को प्राप्त हो जाता है. सो ही इज अगेन सेइंग दैट पिछले जन्मों के, ही इज रेफरिंग टू मेनी births before that, and sanskar, that is, he's using the word sanskar here. So this is very, very interesting here, that we should not take this life as an isolated thing. It is understood so in the West. In all the Semitic religions, this life is considered an isolated activity, which is not true. Life is a cycle, and it will followed by death and then again rebirth, and that rebirth will depend on your karma in this birth. So this whole cycle, if we want to enrich that cycle, life after life, then we have to continue in that path again and again. If we don't continue in that path, then obviously the good karmas which you have done in the past will also depreciate, and then you will continue in the lower path subsequently. So not only that, we continue now, but we have to continue it in the next birth as well, so that we reach the highest level. So this is what Krishna is saying here. He is referring to Manijan, and he is also referring to sanskar, both the words which have been used. So this whole concept that life is not a one-time activity, it's a cycle, it continues. There is a cycle of rebirth, and that cycle of rebirth depends on your karma, and your next birth and your sanskar depends on your karma, is absolutely clear in these verses. योगी तपस्वियों से श्रेष्ठ है, शास्त्र ज्ञानियों से भी श्रेष्ठ माना गया है, और सकाम कर्म करने वालों से भी योगी श्रेष्ठ है. इसलिए हे अर्जुन, तू योगी बन. Now, if you recall the very first verse of this chapter, he said that you don't have to become sannyasi to become yogi. You don't have to abandon this world. You don't have to go to a forest, leaving this whole world. You can become yogi wherever you are. And then he explained how you become. The two things which he explained very clearly, that you should do your work without attachment. Don't get attached to the activities which you are doing, and don't have any expectations out of what you are doing. So if you are able to do that, or the other way thing is that you can remove yourself as the doer, that you are not the doer. Everything is happening in the cycle of this srishti. Cycle of this whole universe is making things happen. You are not the doer. You are just a small little cog in the entire system. So if you can do one of the two, either you are reducing hours, or you are taking away yourself as a doer, or you don't have any expectations out of the work you are doing, and you don't have any desires out of that, then you can be yogi. So that is the yoga he is referring to here. Now tapasvi ka, the basic meaning of tapasvi is the person who passes through rigorous things, Some people, for example, give up their food. Some people don't drink water. Some people are standing on one foot. Some people, they bury themselves under the sand and then they do yoga there. Now that is tapasvi. Tapasvi means you are putting yourself to certain rigor. Your body is putting to certain rigor. Now he says that that kind of tapasvi is not as good as yogi. So all these people who demonstrate you a variety of rigorous thing, like some people say I can walk on fire, some people say that I can live without food for 60 days. Some people say that you bury me in the sand and I can live there for 2 days. Things like that. That is not greater than the yogi. And the yogi is doing all the normal activities. Just he is taking the part of kartapan out of it, or he is getting detached with the results. So that yogi is more important than all the tapasvis which we see around in this world. Then he says that Shastra Jnaniyon se bhi. The word here is tapasvibhyo adhiko yogi. Jnanibhyo api mato adhik. Even the people who have a lot of knowledge of Shastras, even they are not greater than yogi. We find a lot of people who have tremendous knowledge of Shastras. I know people who can tell you, lot about various. You must be hearing a lot of these kathas. Some of those pandits who participate in these kathas, they tell you all kinds of things. Their knowledge is profound. They will have knowledge of Puranas and they will have knowledge of Gita and Ramayana and Mahabharata and life of various characters all around. So he is saying that even those people who have शास्त्रों का पूरा knowledge है जिनके पास ज्ञानपूअपि जिनके पास पूरा ज्ञान है, even those guys are not greater than the yogi. And the yogi very clearly specified that you become yogi while living in your own household. You don't have to give up that. You don't have to become sannyasi. So this is very, very interesting here. So he has said very clearly that in this normal life in which you are living, if you can become yogi by doing two things, kartapan ka abhiman chhod do, that I am not the doer, that is one. And secondly, or alternatively, you detach yourself with all the results of the actions you are doing. Then you become yogi, and that person is greater than tapasvi, and that person is greater than ज्ञानी. शास्त्रों को ज्ञान जिनको है, बहुत से लोग हैं, बहुत से पंडित हैं, they can recite all the Vedas, orally. The Chaturvedi is the word comes from there, that all the four Vedas they can recite orally. Trivedi, the three Vedas they can recite orally. So that kind of people are not greater than the yogi. So this is very interesting here. And then of course sakam काम करने वालों से तो योगी श्रेष्ठ है ही है. The people who are doing their work with expecting some outcome out of it, obviously they are not greater than the yogi. So this is very interesting here, that all these other people whom we consider full of wisdom and knowledge, people who pass through rigorous examination in life, all kind of people who are standing on one leg, and people who can walk on the fire, and people who can live without water and food, all those are not greater than yogi. So don't get misled by all these tricks which we see around. We can be yogi and we can be greater than all those guys. So this is very interesting. संपूर्ण योगियों में भी जो श्रद्धावान योगी मुझ में लगे हुए अंतरात्मा से मुझको निरंतर भजता है. Now yogi who is completely yukt with the Almighty, who is completely given up himself, he surrendered himself to the Almighty, he is the Shrestha, he is the most profound yogi of all yogis. So this is where he ends. So this chapter is actually, uh, called, this chapter is actually called uh, Yog Shastra in certain ways, because he has been explaining in the entire chapter the meaning of yoga uh, in variety of ways. The first way is that living in your household, how you can become yogi. Secondly, how you regulate your sense organs and you do meditation. That whole process of meditation has been explained. And then he has clarified all the doubts of Arjuna later. So, this chapter is basically a chapter on yoga. Now, today this chapter, we end chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita. That is the one third of the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is roughly divided into three parts, up to chapter 6, up to chapter 12, and then from 13 to 18. Up to chapter 6, the Bhagavad Gita basically talks about the self, the individual. In chapter 2nd, we talk about Atma. He talks about that Atma cannot be destroyed. It is cannot be burnt in the fire. The water cannot make it wet. The weapons cannot, destroy it. So he talks about the immortality of Atma, that is the self. Then chapter third, he talks about the karma, that our karma, what we do, how they affect us, and how we can refine our karma, and how we cannot live without karma at all. That we have to do karma whenever we live in this world. Now in chapter number 4, except in the very beginning where he uh, explains that he has appeared as the Almighty, he is the incarnation of the God. Rest of the chapter is again dedicated to the self. And similarly, chapter 5 and 6, they are all dedicated to the self. We understand ourselves how. So, all the chapters, this is very significant that one third of Bhagavad Gita has been dedicated to understanding the self. How I understand myself. Who am I? This is what has been explained. Chapter 7 onwards, you will feel that he will explain what is Brahman, what is the Almighty, up to roughly up to chapter 12. And then beyond that, he will relationship between the two. So this is a rough description of three parts of Bhagavad Gita. And that is why I'm saying you that we have attained a landmark today because we have completed chapter 6. And up to chapter 6, Lord Krishna explains about the self, who we are, why we are here, what we should do to liberate ourselves from this cycle of birth and death. So, this is what he has explained basically on individual souls. So, that is very, very important. And then when we meet next Saturday, we will start what is Brahman. The whole the controlling power of this universe, the power that controls, will be explained in greater detail in the subsequent chapters. It's roughly that way. It's not that it's exclusively that way. It is roughly that way. Like in the chapter 4 here, he explains little bit about Brahma when he talks about avatar, about himself, that I have come here and I can understand this. And, you know, you do not understand what happened in your past birth, but I can understand what happened in your past births. So he talks a little bit about that, but roughly the first 6 chapters are dedicated to understanding the self. So this is very, very important. So I would like to thank you profoundly for giving me this opportunity that we meet every Saturday and we discuss, this great scripture or this great book to understand ourselves. And it has been possible because of cooperation from all of you, and also particularly Rajesh, who has given all the technical support in our exercise every Saturday. Not only that, he uh, puts up the invitation, then he does the recording, and then he also puts it on YouTube. So, special thanks to Rajesh, but to all of you for making this possible to complete this first journey on Bhagavad Gita of chapter 1 to 6. Thank you.